Maybe. Please. Oh my god, please. Please. No. I can't even. Why? This is hilarious. This is so stupid. Oh, I never thought of that. Okay. So there's a timer in the stovetop, and they absolutely do not want you to take it out. Because apparently not one person ever on YouTube has ever had this problem.
Which problem?
With my stove turning off every 30 seconds.
Okay.
Or when it reaches a certain temperature, it has a cool down time. That's because there's a timer on it. And they absolutely do not want you to take that timer out. Because apparently no one's had this problem before. No one's ever had the glass stovetop where they want it to stay on when they turn it on. They all do this.
I knew they were all doing it.
The one of my parents, if you turn it on full, it stays on. It was also bought like 15 years ago. What are you reading?
Because that guy said he's gonna run the runs, the Duran run, whatever, at 12 a.m. EST, and I'm like,
Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, thank you. I should have just asked you. I almost just asked you. Dr. Google.
Magnets? There's a lot of stuff about stuff that doesn't turn off. Oh my god, you guys are so fucking stupid. Interesting. Oh, you okay? What the fuck is wrong with you? Wow. Interesting. All right, we're gonna try to fix the stretch levels. Are you serious? What? That's so crazy. You know that song "Stand by Me"? This is who's talking. The guy who wrote it, he sold it for $25, and they're like, "So that means you haven't gotten it like anything from it since?" He's like, "Yeah." He's never fucking made anything more than $25. Like, whose name is on that song now? He's like, this one guy and a bunch of other lawyers. That's who is claimed to have written that song or produced that song. It's just crazy. Poor guy. Another lucky break. Oh, fucking sad. No shit, eh? Oh, cool. That's sad. Oak Rock. Oh, okay. I don't know who the fuck you are. Mm. Oh, okay. Look at that. Mm. Yeah, I know. Mm. Baby, can you grab the dog treats?
You're courageous.
I like to live dangerously.
See that?
I'd be a fucking great busser. Okay. Oh, coffee's ready. Good. Cancel.
You ask me where to get yourself and you leave by stuffing it, fucking asshole.
Indeed.
Baby!
What?
2 things.
What?
I love you.
I love you.
You can give me a cigarette, please, on the table downstairs.
Okay.
Thank you.
Dude, upgraded to One UI 6.0. Fantastic. Very good.
Boots of eternal stomping.
I don't know what happened here. I think I'm going to give you a cigarette. I just gave you a pack.
Yeah. Yeah. So you know what? Let's do this.
What happened there again?
Oh, you back in the pack and I give my cigarettes. I'm so scared.
I'm just handing my lip cigarette.
Okay. Wow.
Rain, what you doing?
Condiment is amazing. You're down on the couch here too.
I said that and you argued with me about it.
Well, I'm stupid. You could see my brain wasn't working.
And then I even offered, I was like, do you want me to, if, like, maybe we could put that downstairs and put the couch in the living room.
That's why I was ready to go too. I'm sorry. I'm an idiot.
I'm grown sometimes.
What's up?
That doesn't, I don't understand why that's people's ultimate goal in conversation. Where they're like, I want the person to be like, you are right, I am sorry. I'm like, but that never makes me feel better. It makes me feel worse usually. My point isn't to be right.
Well, at least I didn't drag that one longer, and I realized that that was wrong. So we put the thing upstairs.
For sure. And it goes, the back goes down.
Ah, cool.
It's like, you know those old sun chairs? The long ones,
Yeah,
the
yeah.
straps? It's like that in the back.
Cool.
Yeah, it's great. I'm really happy with it.
What?
Bitches laughing at me can all get fucked.
So, what? You want me to kick your girlfriend in the butt? Well, there you go. Like, it's not a gang rape, bro. Fuck. What? Okay, beautiful.
One half hour
1.5 hour? It's 2.5 hour.
or 2.5 hours?
Yeah, it's 2.5 hour. Sausages.
Oh, Armand, you're the one. See, that's the one thing I do like. Our oven, when you put 60, it beeps to make you press it again. Because it's like, are you sure 60? You didn't mean 6?
Yeah, cool.
Sure, it's too big for me. Oh. Everyone half owl. Holy. Come on, you dumb fucking cow. What fucking made of? What are you?
You okay? Okay, Jack?
You okay?
Hello. Baby,
What?
come here.
What's the matter?
Oh,
What's the matter? Oh my god! Jack? Okay.
He's just been eating his girlfriend, I guess.
Open it. What's going on? What's going on? Jack? Jack? Please.
you okay? You? You okay, baby? Because he just fucked his girlfriend. Come here, Jack, come on. Come here, Laura. Like he ripped himself while fucking his girlfriend?
You okay? You scared
Oh,
me.
me too. Need some water and stuff? Some water, boo-boo-boo? You okay? Get him. face.
Excuse me. Don't do that. Breathe. Breathe. Okay?
Sorry, baby.
Probably the not going.
You okay?
Yeah. Cause oh,
Are you okay?
usually you're the one who's like giving me shit to calm down.
Yeah, but because like he was like,
Yeah.
yeah, but I don't want
Right,
to put I don't want to put my finger into his mouth because no, it's not that. Like you know how his throat is, his trachea, and all that, so you know how to go in there. So that's why I called you. I didn't want to, like I check in his mouth. There's something. No, I'm not going further. Like, because in a big, put my hand in there and go get whatever is in there. Maybe fucking his girlfriend is a little too much for him. No? Yeah.
I personally think that's why they get to like any kind of colon cancer or testicular cancer,
Yeah,
to be
yeah.
honest, because they think like it's not normal to have your man parts removed.
No.
Like,
Okay,
I,
crisis averted. My heart shouldn't slow down now. Slow down, heart.
wow, fucking look at my hand. Like,
Oh, yeah.
fucking. I was actually checked the map to see where the closest that is, because Brossard's on the other side of the fucking city. Like literally on the other side of the city. And it was funny, the fucking Chico's. Lady that I know that works at Chico's, that me and her worked at Safari.
What's that?
The lady that works at Chico's, that me and her worked at Safari together.
Yeah.
She walked out of a manager position for DMV. And last time I was there, she was like, oh yeah, no, I would literally, if your pet's dying, I recommend going literally not there. Like, you have a better chance of fucking treating your pet on your own than Googling it. Like, because there they will let your animal down. They are really, really, really bad. Last time I was at DMV, there was a golden retriever puppy that wouldn't stand up. Like, the guy put it down and the dog was flat. And it was very conscious and aware. And they were like, the emergency's closed. He's like, not taking the dog back in the car. I have a wife and a daughter who's like fucking hysterical in that car. I'm not taking the dog back in the car. You're taking the dog. And like, I was just like, yeah, you need to take that dog. Like, it's a puppy and it's not moving. Like, its legs just didn't work. So, it was very upsetting. That is honestly mostly the reason why we don't have more apples at this point. Is because
Well, we need another dog, you know that.
yeah, I definitely would need another dog. And I've been wanting another dog for a really long time.
But I mean, like, not a female. I mean, because it's gonna fuck up her life situation.
Yeah, I agree.
So it's good, man. It doesn't need to be a puppy. Can be like a
No, I prefer not it to be a puppy because I don't want to deal with teething.
Yeah, no, I don't want to deal with puppy time.
And then like potty training.
And rescues are always better.
Oh.
Rescues are always better.
Oh.
Okay, he's licking his dick. Everything's fine.
Oh my god, babe. I love you.
I love you.
Not bad. Not great, but we'll take what we can get. Not bad.
Okay, sir. You good?
Just get to me. Love you. You can't buy yet. Already. So, not bad. Back's terrible. But
That's amazing.
the front is not bad. And you know what it started with? The fact
in the house, you're never gonna turn your back on me. You're always gonna be fronting.
no, I had to get my sewing machine set up, kind of, and figure out how to restraight it. Because I have a lot of clothes that, like, I will wear when I fix them. Because this all started with the shirt being too big. That the shirt's too big and it keeps falling. And I'm like, I can just, like, add a string on it.
You're wearing shirt too big or shirt too small? Shirts or.
My favorites, like, when I lived with my parents, I would get Charlie's clothes. I'm like, come on now. This. You think this is mine? Like, it would be that or 3XL. What? Yeah, sure. No, there was an ongoing joke in high school that I was like Bonnie from Family Guy, and I was like pregnant for 5 years because a bunch of girls, I stole their friend because they were really mean to her. So,
I told them about that, so you don't have to hang out with them.
yeah, no, they're really shitty, but because of that, they made up a rumor that I was trying to cover up my pregnancy because I was wearing an extra large shirt.
Okay.
And everyone started coming, like my friends started coming to me, be like, "Oh my God, Matt, how far along are you?" About 5 years. Did you get your coffee?
Yeah.
Okay.
Did you notice I'm not jumping around anymore?
Well, Okay.
Takeout and delivery. I do breakfast.
I hate you. I don't know why this song's so good.
Does your foundation have this? Skin loving
I
hyaluronic acid.
hate you.
Other foundations.
Oh, way better. Ugh. You know who that is?
No.
Good Charlotte.
Oh, wow.
What? Oh, hater. Fucking amazing.
It's okay. It's okay.
No, Green Day. It's so gay.
I feel like it's like makeup. you're pretty gay to me.
Sorry?
As soon as you put makeup on when you're a punk rocker, you're pretty gay to me.
I don't think that. Yeah, but everybody who's on camera has makeup on.
No. The sad face makeup. No.
Yeah, Good Charlotte didn't do that.
Yes, they did.
Simple Plan did.
Oh, maybe I'm mistaken.
Simple Plan was like the
Maybe I'm
I'm
just,
sorry, I can't be perfect. That was fucking gay. Cause we lost it all. Nothing lasts forever. I'm sorry,
Okay,
it can't be perfect.
Baby, please,
It's a great song. What are you talking about?
please.
Please. Please.
Sir, please, sir.
Smoke your crack, don't even want to take you back. Don't be silly.
Please state your name for the record. Chadwick Merriweather Harding. And the third.
Can I get back to you with that?
Look at the way they dress. They have a horrible fashion sense. Isn't it true? You treated you like a dog. Mr. Porter, ready to the verdict.
Your Honor. Time of defendants.
Oh god. It's like they're trying to do subliminal messaging.
Really?
I love being rich.
I love you. What?
I love being rich. Prices will blow your mind. Like, the fuck? Shop like a billionaire. The fuck? It was fucking nuts. And then when you got super last and do like. Oh. Come on, come on. Here we go. Every time at school, we got free lunch, and the cool kids meet us up. And the rich kids had convertibles, and we had to ride the bus. They still laughed at us. Broke up with me, cause I wasn't cool enough. Cause she was breaking, I just can't take it. There's a lot to get around. On Christmas Eve, Dad went to the store. His things were gone. We didn't see him no more.
Hi everyone. I need to poop.
Thanks for sharing, yeah.
I shared to the whole world.
You proud of yourself? Well, yeah. Perfect. Everybody poops. Ow. That hurt.
I poop faster than the speed of science. What?
Too much.
Speed of science?
No.
Talking about it?
Yeah. I'm like addicted to them. I'm literally like, this is probably the best batch of cupcake edibles that I've made so far. But like, I'm literally like a junkie because I was like, I had my cupcake and I was like, I had to do something of like actual value. And I was like, and I just like destroyed my cupcake. Like Jen destroying fucking cake. Huh. Oh my god.
Yeah, that's exactly what you're listening to.
Oh my god.
No, did you feel like that? Feel like dancing with your hands in the air like this halfway?
Oh my god. Like, woo! Oh my god. okay, Jack. I'm just crazy.
I stepped in his treats and then you went to eat them.
Ew. Oh. Oh yeah. Woo!
American journalists for spying on them when they met with Assange at the Ecuadorian embassy. There are growing signs this morning that this case will not be dismissed, that the judge in New York is going to allow this to move. This could be groundbreaking. This could be the major positive step, perhaps in getting Assange released from prison, perhaps a catalyst, if you will. Kevin Costola is an excellent journalist.
That's not even him. That's his
More
brother.
about the Assange case than perhaps anyone. In fact, I believe he's the only one that's really been covering this New York case, which is unbelievable to me. You think all of the major media would be covering this story. Of course, they're quiet on this story. He's also the author of the book Guilty of Journalism, the political case against Julian Assange. And Kevin joins us now. Kevin, great to see you, and thanks for your journalism. Good to speak with you. So am I putting too much on this case? I'm saying that I believe this is a big catalyst which could lead to major things happening in the Assange case. Can you walk us through it? Am I making too much of this?
Yes.
Or is this a big deal with this judge?
You are making too much of this, and you're annoying me.
Hey everyone, it's Dr. Romney. I'm going to offer you a different way to think about love bombing that may make more sense than the love bombing. I was talking with some, all these ideas, I'm always talking with folks, right? I was talking with someone the other day, and we were talking about the disorientation that happens when you're love bombed. This was an event where there were many survivors of narcissistic relationships there, and the hard part that people were often struggling with was the self-blaming about falling for the love bombing or even enjoying the love bombing. Love bombing is disorienting. It's disorienting because it may feel like the answer to a lifetime of wanting to be or to believe the fictional fairy tales we have been fed, or the sense of, well, I asked for or prayed for or said
I prayed for
true love, and this is so overwhelming. So this must be it.
You fucking
This woman I
idiot.
was talking with many people who are love bombed. She was really smart. We
Not
really
smart
need to
enough.
Can this narrative that people who are vulnerable to love bombing are people who are needy or sad or lost or weak or foolish. It's none of the above. It's as though the love bombing was custom made for you by some kind of malevolent AI data mining robot that knows exactly what you care about and value. Hold on to your hat, folks. As AI evolves, love bombing is definitely going to get worse. And so we feel as though when we're being love bombed, as though we are in something special and unreal. It may be the person who is convinced that they'll never find love again after another relationship ends, and presto, the narcissistic person shows up. Or the person who wants to find a person who treats them as an equal, and then bam, the narcissistic person is talking all kinds of balance, and we're a team, and I see us as equals.
Kind of nonsense.
Who loves to travel, and the love bomber says, hey, let's get out our backpacks and see the world and homeschool our kids in an RV. They pay attention to your dreams, to that stuff you share with them, and they figure out how to download you long enough to tailor the love bombing to you. And once that begins, So too does the cognitive dissonance and the justifying.
Uh-oh.
And then they may not be able to forever keep being on point,
Oh
but we start filling in the holes. We want this
no.
to
That's
work.
what she said.
The analogy that hit me,
Uh-oh.
that being love bombed,
Oh no.
is like driving into the sun.
Oh.
At that particular hour of sunset or
What's on
sunrise,
that?
when the sun is positioned in the sky and over the road at such an angle that you really see. You're doing a lot of this. It can actually be quite dangerous because you may not adequately be able to see around the next
Oh,
corner,
so cold
or
down
the
here.
car ahead, or the car ahead of you. But it's dazzling, right? It's the sun. It's the setting sun. It's the rising sun. And we keep trying to see things clearly despite this big, bright sun blinding us. Love bombing is like that sun. So bright that we can't see anything else. And when we can't see anything else,
Oh.
I told my friend who's an engineer to beat this level on Buildmasters. Well,
Shut the fuck
it
up.
House leader.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This has been a difficult few weeks for the House and for the office of the Speaker. A lot has been said. We've had a debate on a privilege motion here in the House, and we've had extensive meetings at Procedure and House Affairs, studying the blatant displays of partisanship that the current Speaker has engaged in, and the fact that all members of this House have
I do have a point of order, the Honorable Minister.
For interrupting very fast. Madam Speaker, I am tabling the government's responses to questions number 1957 to 1967. Thank you.
The Honourable Official Opposition Deputy House Leader resuming debate.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I was just about to say that we've discussed this matter at some length, both in a privilege motion here in the House and at extensive meetings at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. And so I'll just do a very quick recap of how we got here. Of course, the current Speaker comes into the chair after a history of hyper-partisanship, including roles at the executive level of the Liberal Party, Youth Party President, Parliamentary Secretary to the Prime Minister. He was often engaged at partisan filibusters at committee, blocking investigations into corruption at the highest government. We all remember that he was one of the first to rise to his feet when a member of the NDP was physically assaulted in this chamber by the Prime Minister and actually accused that NDP MP of exaggerating her injuries. Something that took all of us by surprise here in this House. It was a very, what I believe, a very shameful display of defense of a Prime Minister who had clearly broken one of the most fundamental rules of decency, which is not to physically assault each other in this chamber. After his election, members of the official opposition were willing to respect the decision of the House and to give him the benefit of the doubt. But a few days ago, we saw a video of the Speaker in his robes, in his office, congratulating a sitting Liberal member of Parliament, provincial Parliament, praising that individual and participating in a Liberal election convention. Now, that wasn't bad enough. Just a few days ago, news came to light that the Speaker attended a Liberal cocktail militant. That's, I believe, translates into English as a volunteer or an activist cocktail. It's a partisan networking or fundraising event. We have reports from people who are at that event, including the provincial member of Parliament, that indicated that funds were collected for the Liberal campaign war chest, a clear partisan activity. So it is for all those reasons that the opposition believes that the Speaker cannot continue in this role and must do the right thing, put the integrity and impartiality of the House first and foremost. So, Madam Speaker, that's what we're seeking to do with this motion. We believe that it's best for the House, for the Speaker, to resolve this very quickly. We, Speaker's chair should be vacated, that
current speaker should step down, and if he won't do that, which clearly he's indicated he won't, this motion brings effect to that, and effectively orders the chair to be deemed vacant and a new election for speaker to be held. The reason why this is important, why Canadians should care about this, is because in our system there are different kinds of checks and balances on the Prime Minister's personal authority. And one of those checks is standing orders of this House, the rules of precedence, and the office of the Speaker, to ensure that even though one particular party may have a majority of the votes, or a political party in coalition with another party have an effective coalition government, that the opposition parties, the other parties, still have a way to scrutinize, to delay, to allow more debate and more transparency and accountability, and to propose alternatives. And when the Speaker cannot acquit himself or herself of their responsibilities in an impartial way, that helps erode that check on that power that the government has. So I'll just quickly roll through some of the reasons why the Speaker's apology was not sufficient. He claimed that the video for the convention was all a miscommunication.
Huh.
Well, we'll park that for a moment. Even if we were to not consider the Liberal convention that he participated in, on the afternoon of December 1st, he undertook an interview with Laura Stone of the Globe and Mail, in which he paid tribute to outgoing Ontario Liberal Party interim leader John Fraser in glowing terms, while referring to Mr. Fraser's work on behalf of our party. So, calm, cool, collected, sat down, took an interview request with a reporter from a national newspaper, and offered opinions and comments on an active member of the provincial legislature, referring to that party as our party. So clearly displaying that partisan affiliation. We know that there was a discrepancy in terms of how between the versions of events that the Speaker put forward and the version of events that came out of the Ontario Liberal Party as to the nature of the event. And the apology is just not sufficient. While the House was seized with this very issue, the Speaker went to Washington, D.C. during a sitting week, in the middle of a sitting week, which in and of itself is a very, very unusual thing for a Speaker to do, on a pre-planned trip that he had booked while he was still a parliamentary secretary. And rather than delay that event or turn it or have an official delegation from our parliament, which is normal practice for speakers to take delegations to other parliaments, other legislatures to build on that parliamentary diplomacy. Rather than doing that, he just transferred the trip from his members of parliament budget onto a speaker budget and went ahead with the trip anyway. And again, on that trip, he talked about reliving his glory days as a young liberal activist. Again, while the House is sitting, members on all sides of the House have to watch the Speaker talking up the Liberal Party of Canada, reliving those. There's a reason why speakers avoid all partisan links when they take the chair. It is to give comfort to members of Parliament from other parties that they truly have put aside their partisan affiliation. The current Speaker hasn't been doing that from the time he took the chair, and he continues to display grave errors and errors of judgment. Now, you can be partisan. There are lots of partisan people. All of us get elected to this place through a partisan manner. Many of us have long histories of activism in a movement. And even when we come here, some people choose to pour their efforts into the types of things, whether it's a committee or in the House, that absolutely defend your party, defend your team, and do all of those types of things. And there's nothing wrong with that. But those members of Parliament tend not to put themselves forward for Speaker. And certainly those members of Parliament tend not to be elected Speaker. But here we have a current Speaker with that past who has not respected the impartiality of the chair and has continued to put his partisan affiliation in front of the House on several occasions now. So for those reasons, Madam Speaker, I am moving the motion today. And I would really urge members of Parliament from all parties to reflect situation. I understand there'll be many Liberal members of Parliament that just have a knee-jerk reaction to defend their Liberal speaker. And I know that there's clearly been some kind of deal offered with the NDPF, as we've seen so often before. They put aside the interests of the members of their party and activists within their movement who want real change, and they trade that away for things that it's hard to tell what they get back. I look forward to hopefully one day being able to play poker with the House leader from the NDP or even the leader of the NDP, because I have a feeling that'd be a pretty good round for me, because it's unclear to see what they ever get out of all the water they carry for this government, all the defense they play for this government. And while Canadians are hurting and really seeking real change, the NDP have decided to prop up this government in almost every way, almost every day. And this current situation with the Speaker has clearly shown that they're not actually interested. They don't actually believe the things they say about the integrity of the office of the Speaker, the importance of Parliament. That is as phony as everything we hear from the Liberals. But I'm asking them to park that for a moment and just think about the damage that can be done in a short period of time by a speaker that does not respect the impartiality and the important role that he plays in this House for the good of the institution. Allow this motion to come to a vote in favor of it, so that the House can have a new election, a fresh start with a speaker that can make the determination between the roles and responsibility of a member of Parliament once they put on the uniform and sit in that chair, and a hyper-partisan MP who has the right to do what he or she would like to do, to always defend their party, to always attack their opponents, but to do that from a position back within the government benches. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Questions and comments? The Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, the Honourable Official Office Government Deputy House Leader. There we go. It's coming.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I appreciate the member from Regina Pell's intervention today and his insight into this matter, and asking us to genuinely consider this, and because I'd like to learn a little bit from him. He has had that opportunity to be both speaker and a non-speaker, and he understands probably better than most the relationship and the dynamic between the two. I know that yesterday he tweeted out an explanation as to why it was okay for him to attend a political campaign fundraising in his own riding, but suggested that it's okay to do it in one's own riding, but not outside of one's own riding. I'm wondering if he can just expand a little bit on that and inform us why it would be okay in your own riding if you're the speaker.
Oh my God,
you're riding outside of your riding.
Good job.
The Honourable Official Opposition House Leader.
That's a great question. I appreciate the friendly question from the member from Kingston, because there is a very important difference, and it really does change the nature of it. Speakers have always had to run under party banners until the day comes where parties have a convention or agreement that we will not run candidates against the speaker. The speaker has to go into an election and has to have signs and pamphlets and organize volunteer meetings. And there's never been an expectation that a speaker would cease partisan activities in that nature for their own election. Previous speakers have done that for decades. In fact, the previous speaker, the member for Nipissing Timiskaming, did a government announcement in his riding for a government funding announcement. Nobody objected to that because it was clear that he was communicating to his own constituents, that he was talking about the work that he does as a member of Parliament and informing his constituents as to a government decision in his riding. We were aware of that the speaker had made that announcement. But that did not offend members of Parliament because it wasn't his own riding. Same is true for partisan fundraising activity. By the speaker going to another riding's EDA and raising money for a political party is an offense to the other parties who will one day run candidates in that riding.
The Honourable New Westminster Burnaby.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker. I thank the member for his speech. We agree on some things, we disagree on others. So I certainly agreed in referring this to Procedure and House Affairs Committee. Procedure and House Affairs Committee made a decision and brought it back to the House. And now it seems that Conservatives are saying, well, we wanted the Procedure and House Affairs Committee to examine this, but now we're just going to disregard the findings of that committee. find that unfortunate. I also found his comments unnecessarily partisan, and this is unfortunate in this kind of debate. So the reality is, this motion falls to the bottom of the government order paper in an hour. So we have an hour of discussion, and then it's right down to the bottom. Bill, in terms of priority, I don't know, 90, 80 or 90. Certainly we have anti-SCAP legislation. We have a whole variety of important legislation to consider. So he's aware of that. Given that we're going to have this debate for an hour and then it falls to the bottom of the government order paper, I want to cite to the member his own words, saying that commenting on the character or actions of the speaker, for example, on an allegation of bias, could be taken by the House of breaches of privilege and punished accordingly. That was the member from Regina Capel as speaker. So once we finish this debate, where it is appropriate to raise concerns that the Conservatives may have, will they undertake to abide by Speaker Regina Capel's own very clear direction of this House and stop with the criticism of the Speaker, because that would be inappropriate according to the member for Regina.
Position.
You're retarded.
Well, first of all, I'd say that it's not clear. We do not accept that this will just drop to become a government order. That's going to be a determination for the chair. And I'll have more to say on that in a few moments. As to why we're moving this motion after prompt studying the case, it's quite.
Every politician is fucking suspect of criticism. Just saying. You make decisions that apply to everyone else, so yeah.
Okay, let's see which the
So legal to criticize the speaker is fucking great.
It stains everything it touches. You can't mix it with anything, but I'm gonna try and mix it. Okay, maybe it is compatible with some things. It's activated.
Quite simple. I'm surprised that the member doesn't understand this aspect of it. The Procedure and House Affairs Committee were to study the circumstances and recommend remedies. The House itself took a finding that the Speaker had undermined the impartiality of the chair. And the difference between Procedure and House Affairs recommending a remedy and everybody in this House having a vote on it is this. Every member of Parliament gets a vote when a Speaker is selected.
Yeah.
Only members of the Procedure and House Affairs Committee had a say in that committee report. We believe that now that that study is done, that all members of Parliament should have a vote on whether or not the Speaker should stay in the chair. And that's the reason why we move this motion. As to what happens next, of course, Conservatives will always follow the rules of form and order in this House.
Yeah, I agree.
Madam Speaker, I certainly appreciate the member for Regina Capel's interventions, because this is an area he knows well, both having served as a House Leader for the opposition, but also a Speaker. When I heard of these instances that are unfortunately that we've heard on in fundraising and appearances at a provincial Liberal convention, Madam Speaker, I phoned someone who used to work for a Speaker at the provincial level, and I asked to see if they had any prior experience in this kind of thing. And essentially said that the one case that he was reminded of having served for a Speaker is that particular Speaker said, I'd like to attend a event for my party. It's a dinner. I will be going by myself, and essentially asked the opposition to make sure that everyone was comfortable with the Speaker attending what would be a partisan event, even just as an individual MLA. So I'd just like to see if he knows if there's any kind of parallels at the federal level.
The honorable official opposition.
Well, I appreciate my colleague's question, and it just goes to show how a Speaker should approach these types of questions, where if there's any doubt, if there's any semblance of a partisan link, they absolutely should think about that and take steps to make sure that it does not look like they are favoring one political party. And the example that he used of a Speaker consulting with other parties to find out what they would, how they might react, is one way to do that. It's one way to safeguard the impartiality of the chair. I know my predecessor, Speaker Milliken, would only go to his own Liberal Party Christmas, his own Liberal Christmas party, if he could also go to other Christmas parties as well for the other recognized party, so that there was no sense that he was favoring his side or engaging in what is often a partisan event. We all get together, we bring in volunteers and activists, fundraisers from around the country to come and celebrate the holidays with us. And so those are the types of things that speakers would normally do. In my own riding, when I got invitations from my provincial counterparts, it was the easiest thing in the world. I just said no. When my provincial counterparts say, hey, would you come to our dinner or our annual general meeting? I said, I'd love to support you, but I'm the speaker. I can't be seen. Other than that, I got to say no to a lot of events for 4 years. It's relatively simple.
Questions and comments? Questions et commentaires des membres de Fleetwood Hills?
Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I do appreciate the honourable member's comments because a reputation manager will tell you that there can be a crack in the foundation. You need to fix that crack, but you're always going to look to where the crack was. And I guess
Are you
the
telling me
question,
you're back?
especially for the members of the opposition,
Sure, I think you're on track.
the speaker's background and his affiliations, what will they be looking for? If the speaker endures and continues on in the role, what signals will you be looking for that either establishes a non-biased, non-partisan view or the contrary?
Needs to address questions and comments through the chair, not directly to the members. The honourable official opposition house leader.
Well, Madam Speaker, we made our position very clear with the blatant displays of partisanship that we've seen over the last few weeks. It's just it would just be best for the House if the current speaker went back to the government benches and went back to the partisan roles that he's clearly had in the past, and that he has clearly clouded his judgment going forward. I don't want to prejudge what will happen with this situation. Many members of Parliament have not expressed an opinion on this. I'm not sure what the outcome of this vote will be when it comes to when it finally comes to a vote. But it is our belief that for the good of the institution, for the good of the speaker himself, for the good of the office that he holds, that he step down and allow someone else to take the position who can have a better idea of staying away from partisan activities.
Resuming debate, the honourable Kingston and the Islands.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. It's an honor to rise today to speak to this motion. I would have thought that this issue would have been put to rest, given the fact that we've spent a considerable amount of time on it. Nonetheless, Conservatives have chosen to once again bring it before the House. And I find that to be very unfortunate. I'll tell you why, for starters, Madam Speaker. Conservatives were never interested in asking the Speaker to resign until they saw it as a political opportunity. And we know that, Madam Speaker, because when the Honourable Johnny Capel first came into this House about 2 weeks ago to rise on point of privilege regarding the matter, he didn't, in his entire point of privilege, ask for the Speaker to resign. He never did that once. As a matter of fact, it wasn't until the next party member spoke, which was a member from the Bloc, and they called on the Speaker to resign, that suddenly the member from Regina Capel came flying back into the room and asked.
Such broad shit.
This is a farm.
Right.
No, really, this is a farm. So is this.
Does it have a fucking
Inside
$1 billion
there's
barn?
hundreds of pounds of leafy
In a
green goodness
basement and an elevator?
all year. Rain, snow, or shine. Where are all these farms going? Everywhere. At Freight Farms, we're on a mission to move farms, not food. Because flying lettuce across the globe to arrive at your plate looking like this just doesn't make sense anymore. There are better options.
Ah!
Freight
Like
Farms.
getting a government who's fucking not useless.
To CTV's Capital Dispatch with Rachel Aiello.
Never heard of it.
Hey everyone, I'm Rachel Aiello. Welcome
No
to
idea
this
who you are.
edition of Capital Dispatch. So, there's a couple things that happened on the Hill this week I want to go over with you, but first,
On
I
the
think it's
Hill.
important to note, this is the last week of the House sitting. We've made it to the end of the year. So really the focus in the House of Commons this week was on whether or not the Conservatives were going to make good on their threat to ruin everyone's Christmas and keep them here through the holidays. Well, spoiler alert, that didn't happen. What we did see this week, instead of kind of that massive filibuster of 30 hours I talked about last week, there was other little procedural things that the Conservatives did to try like jam up the government's agenda. But all told, MPs, as of recording this, are about to rise for the year on time as scheduled. But because of all of the acrimony in the last couple of weeks, tensions have been really running high. Government House Leader Karina Gold suggested yesterday that the Conservatives should maybe take a time out over the holidays, go home, talk to their families, talk to their constituents, and
No, we've been talking. Eat shit.
cooler heads. The Conservatives, though, are confident and steadfast in the approach they've taken. One of the MPs speaking to reporters was suggesting that the reason it is so intense in the House
It's because our government is corrupt and we're trying to out him.
Canadians are hurting, the government doesn't recognize it, and the opposition is doing what they can to try to keep those issues alive. The NDP, reflecting on the fall sitting they had, were pretty happy with what they were able to accomplish, citing the new dental care plan that rolled out this week, as well as in the 11th hour, coming to an agreement on pharmacare. What essentially they've agreed to is that there will be a new deadline for the government to table a pharmacare framework piece of legislation. They were supposed to table and pass it by the end of this year, obviously. That didn't come to fruition, so now they've been given an extension to March. So they're pretty happy about that, as well as getting the anti-scab bill through. Just to kind of do like a one...
did you fucking
look at what
retrain by Tucker Carlson to literally give no information?
This fall sitting. Long story short, not a ton. About 5 government bills made it all the way through from September to now. Among them is that controversial gun control legislation that then Public Safety Minister Marco Mendicino managed to get through the House last May after spending about a dozen committee hearings and a dozen more days of debate. Over the last couple months in the Senate, it passed without changes on Thursday evening. They also managed to pass, finally, this Affordable Groceries and Housing Bill, as we've chatted about this one before. It was the first piece of legislation the government brought forward this fall. So those were a couple of the bills that got passed more recently, but there are another handful or so of key pieces of legislation that have been left to languish, waiting to move when MPs come back next year. Among them, the Canada-Ukraine Free Trade Bill, the anti-scab legislation I just mentioned, as well as the government's fiscal statement implementation bill. So still lots for the government to do. They always say they got a lot done. I don't think it's a very overly productive legislative chunk of time. But when you take a look at everything that was going on in the House and outside the House over the last couple of months, it was really quite an intense political fall. I do think there were a number of factors playing into the productivity we saw in the chamber. Speaking of in the chamber, the other thing I wanted to mention in terms of what happened on the Hill this week was we got a conclusion to the House Speaker Greg Fergus situation. Ultimately, the Procedure and House Affairs Committee decided that instead of asking for him to resign, they were going to issue a number of sanctions. This included him paying a fine, him giving an apology again to MPs. They included some specifics about what he needed to say in that apology, and Fergus delivered that Friday morning in the House. As well, they're asking the House administration to set up some new rules and parameters to ensure this kind of misjudgment about having a non-partisan speaker attend a partisan event doesn't happen again. But I don't know that this is the end of the acrimony around Mr. Fergus. The Conservatives and the Bloc, although they pushed, could pass their calls for his resign, but they're not slowing down on those. They're kind of bringing up other examples.
No one cares about the two fucking
was participating in a political
fucking shit, man. Just a little less juice next time. I'm scared. I'm scared to make a game. Why? I don't know. I'm just scared. I'm just uncertain times.
Canada's spy service is warning that climate change could leave our country vulnerable. A newly released CSIS analysis suggests global warming could threaten security as countries and other actors use changing weather patterns to improve their economic position.
Oh, I'm
or
super
exploit
dating
their
fucking
adversaries'
Billboard now.
climate-related weaknesses. The documents describe a number of risks, from foreign interference in Canada's move to a low-carbon economy to the rise of electric terrorism linked to transition.
Is that actually it?
Wow! Fuck you guys, man.
Expensive things to run. You have ongoing costs like garbage collection or. The final details have been released on Google's deal with the federal government to pay Canadian news outlets.
A first of its kind in the world, where we have a transparent and viable legislation.
Unbelievable, man.
Smaller news outlets also have a seat at the negotiating table.
Google has agreed to pay $100 million annually to Canadian news companies. 2/3 of the funding will be distributed to print and digital media, while the remaining third will be used to fund broadcasters. The public broadcaster, CBC Radio Canada, will be capped at just 7% of that pool. There's also about $5 million in administrative costs. Now, the federal government's Online News Act comes into effect next week, but Meta remains absent from the bargaining table. Paul Deegan is the president and CEO of News Media Canada, which represents hundreds of outlets across the country. He joins me now.
Yo, that is the most fucking. You're so creepy.
Behind you are these regular CEO of News Media Canada, which represents hundreds of outlets across.
Why are you so terrifying?
The country. He joins me now. Mr. Deegan, it's good to speak with you.
Great to see you, David.
I see the Christmas tree behind you. Are these regulations the gift you were hoping for this holiday season?
A Christmas tree?
Well, we got 63 million reasons to be smiling right now, so we're very appreciative in terms of what's happened. I have to say,
Nah, I mean, obviously, probably because you're American, but, or like, probably not even. Angelo. So I'm assuming you live in a country that actually is not falling to shit. And I get fucking copyrighted for music. The more the government doesn't want me to listen to the radio, the more I'm gonna fucking listen to the radio. That's a fucking jerk.
Okay, I want to go through some math that I saw presented by
No Christmas music in this house.
I'm sure you're aware is not a fan of this legislation. And he lays out that in his estimates, Google was already paying about $50 million to news companies. Meta was paying about $20 million to news companies. And so what you're left with here when you deduct the administrative costs is a net gain of $25 million in his numbers. When you subtract the lost value of all the traffic from Facebook and Instagram that news companies relied on, is the industry really that much further ahead with where we are today?
Absolutely. So, before the Online News Act, we had about Google and Meta did deals with about a dozen publishers in Canada. I don't know exactly what their deals were, but now you've got a situation where all eligible publishers will be entitled to compensation for Google. And we see on the publishing side, at least, it working out to roughly in the neighborhood of $20,000 a journalist. And that's really on par with the same deal that the New York Times got. So you're going to see community weekly newspapers across Canada, for example, and folks like my friend Jeff Elgie coming up next, getting roughly $20,000 a day per journalist. And we think that's a very good number. And this is under a durable framework, a legislative and regulatory framework where it's sort of $20,000 in terms of who they're paying to and how much. So we've got a solid framework in place where we're going to have many more winners under this scenario.
Okay, I'm not. This question is not meant to cast aspersions on smaller.
That is literally 10 years ago. That was the poverty rate was $20,000 a year, and my family was living off 13.
Some of the bigger institutional figures in the global.
After my father working for 32 years at a company and having to retire early, including so his pension was deducted.
Is that a possibility?
So in terms of Meta, like if you look just globally, right now, they're not doing licensing agreements. So for example, the New York Times included one with Google, but not with Meta. So,
you guys are going to make it impossible to be a journalist, and that be a career. You just put journalism away as a career option. That's what you did. Wow, that's fucking crazy.
I think everyone has to look at this as the money that is now coming from Google, which is guaranteed money. It's $100 million a year overall, 63 million news publishers indexed to inflation. We've got a much more solid situation
Okay, so literally we have people that have careers in never speaking numbers, and then we have guys like this that can only speak in numbers. You say numbers at me and
The other
numbers.
side of the facade I work on, would you say that's a fair split of the funds?
Look, I'd say it's fair.
Oh.
The budget office, their initial estimate was that 2/3 of the money would go to broadcasters, 1/3 to us. We never thought that would happen. That just made no sense whatsoever. I think it is equitable. I think
Wow.
is the public broadcaster. And listen, there would be a range of views on our members about the CBC doing anything. But the fact is, the CBC does high quality journalism in this country, and
Are you saying you don't want views?
deserve to be compensated for that. I think the question really was how much, and I think that
Not $20,000 a year, probably.
it also sends an important signal to other public broadcasters
If don't become a journalist,
that their content is
because
valued.
you will literally starve to death.
I could argue that we should get all of the money, but the fact is, on a principled basis, you produce content and you should be paid for that. That's what the Online News Act is all about. It's about being
No, it's not. It's about you guys saying that being a journalist is not worth it. You can do it as a hobby.
We are right now in terms of Meta. I mean, there's no indication they're coming back. And it seems like, this may have precipitated their permanent exit. Do you think that is the permanent state of things right now, that Google will be the only real tech company participating in this framework in any meaningful way?
So honestly, I don't know. I mean, the one thing I would say is the Meta's decision.
I love how many of you don't know. All the journalists that fucking come on TV and go, I don't actually know.
You saw things like Campbell Brown exiting, things like that, which would seem to indicate that they're pulling away from news. I think, to be clear, as a company as to what they want to do, the one thing I would say is, if you look at Meta without news, what's left on their platform? It's cats and Kardashians, right? So I think for their platform to be valuable,
Facebook. Just say Facebook.
fact-based, fact-check news that folks like Jeff Elgie and his team produce. So they're much stronger with news, and we would encourage them to play ball. Pascal Saint-Onge has been very flexible. She's totally reasonable. She's totally
See about
accessible.
Ben on Facebook yet.
I know her door is open, and I'm sure she would love to talk to them. So, we would say to them,
You're
get
still
in
on?
the game and
Oh, look at that. I
have a
haven't been
discussion,
mine yet.
and let's see if we can come up
Where's
with something that's
my-
fair and equitable and predictable for everybody.
Right. Well, the argument back from Meta is that random people post the content on their page. They don't go scrape it the way Google does for search engines and potential AI products. So it's a totally different business model that they feel they shouldn't have to pay for.
They benefit from that content, and in our view, they should compensate us for it.
So
they sell advertising against it. They harvest all sorts of data, which is worth a lot of money. They should pay us. I mean, this is really sort of Jerry Maguire time for Meta. It's time to pay folks.
Okay, I think the phrase was "show me the money" that you're looking for.
You guys are fucking nuts.
But look, there are some concerns that some smaller independent media companies and the inelegant phrase ethnic media may not get the funding they need because of this, and they'll lose out to larger media. I mean, do you see that playing it out that way in these final regulations, or do you think there's a way to make sure that they're also protected in this?
So the way the legislation is structured, so anyone who's got the qualified Canadian journalism tax credit status qualifies. So, for example, there's several ethnic publishers, there's minority language publishers that have that status, so they'll qualify. And then there's also another criteria, without getting kind of technical or boring on you, where they can come in. So I think there's ample opportunity for many publishers to benefit from this. And again, we would see this as being in the neighborhood of $20,000 per journalist, which is obviously very meaningful, in particular to the smallest publishers.
So there still needs to be, Paul Deegan, this
You
collective
guys are
bargaining
fucking terrible.
body, I don't know what to call it, that will sort of bargain on behalf of the media institutions with Google to figure out how and determine who gets what. Where is that, and when do we see this thing come to life?
Yeah, so look, I think that process is going to be less complicated than it looks in terms of the regulations. We were on the phone earlier today with both the CBC and the Canadian Association of Broadcasters. We're prepared to simply receive the check to cut them their respective checks, so meaning $30 million and $7 million. We obviously wouldn't take a fee on that. I mean, this is just a straight pass-through. I think this is actually far less complex than people think. And, the real goal
is to get the money flowing quickly to news businesses, but also to have Google, who's operated, so in a socially responsible manner and in good faith, to have them get their exemption. And you don't think this is going to take 6 months or anything like that. This should work much faster than that, and it's in Google's self-interest and in our self-interest to have it work that way.
So it can just flow through you, and you just check to the broadcasters and make you deal.
We've already decided that we're going to get a 3-minute delay, and we worked it all out. I mean, this is easy, and we don't need the CRTC involved in that. We don't need to take a fee. This is just receive a check, and we write them a check.
Okay. Paul Deegan, I did not know that, so thank you for sharing that information.
yeah.
Paul Deegan is the president and CEO of News Media Canada. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, David, and happy holidays to you and your family.
You too, sir. Okay, well, as Paul Deegan said, for more reaction on this, we had Jeff LG. He is the CEO of Village Media Canada, a digital-only local news publisher operating in dozens of Ontario communities, and he joins me now. Jeff, it's good to speak with you again.
Good to see you again, David. Thanks for having me back.
So we knew the $100 million figure the last time we spoke. We didn't quite know how it was all going to break down and what the regulations would look like. Where do you think they've landed on this in terms of what it means for startup publishers like you?
Oh my god, you'd be like a sensible human.
Well,
Great.
based on the final regulations released this morning, the distribution, with the split going roughly 63% to the traditional news media industry is good news for us. That means instead of approximately $10,000 to $12,000 a journalist, you might be, as Paul Deegan mentioned, upwards of $20,000 a journalist. For us, the math is pretty simple. We have about 90 journalists on staff. That's significant money.
That's right, because last time we spoke, you said it was about 10,000 to 12,000
That's
per journalist, right? And then there were other measures you might be able to take advantage of through the recent tax credits that were in the budget. So this is more than I think you were expecting to receive in the final.
Yeah, that number was based on our expectation of an equal distribution across CBC and the private broadcasters. And in that case, it would have been that for kind of our sector. But with the regulations actually rebalancing the distribution of funds and giving it a disproportionate, higher proportion of funds to the roughly 3,500 journalists that make up the classic news media kind of non-broadcast sector, we now approach that upper limit.
Okay, because you mentioned the CBC Radio Canada, and we spoke about this last time, and I asked you flat out whether you thought the company I work for should get money. You said absolutely not. Not quite that bluntly. But they have found a solution here where they're capping what the CBC is eligible for, right? It is not based on the much larger workforce that this company has compared to other companies, and it works out to us a little, I think it'll be a little under $7 million.
Fucking
that will be
shit.
split between Radio Canada and CBC. Is that figure in your final assessment, or do you still think that's money that should be going into the other pool?
I think it's a reasonable compromise. Like as we talked about in the last.
That's fucking nuts.
Certainly, the CBC gets a significant amount of funding from the federal government.
They're the only ones who are allowed to news out.
To not suggest to the rest of the world that CBC content wasn't valuable, that they shouldn't pursue.
It is.
And I think it's a fair compromise. So I have no issue with it.
Okay, so Pascal St-Onge said today that the funding translates to about $20,000 to journalists, so that aligns with what you and Paul Deegan have said. But the loss of Meta, just to go back to that point, Meta has said that on committee, I think this week, they were paying about $20 million in deals with groups. Paul Deegan suggested that those are likely going to go away anyway. I don't know if that's the case, or if C18 and all of those other things sort of precipitated this. $20,000 to journalists, so it sounds like you still think this is worth it, even with the loss of Meta money and Meta traffic.
I think it depends. I think there's different scenarios where some will be better off, some will potentially be worse off. So I think, as Paul Deegan mentioned, there were some companies that had deals with both Google and Facebook prior to this. And we don't know the details of those deals, but obviously the Meta deals will end and the Meta traffic has ended. So I think there are some scenarios, potentially for larger media companies that struck deals earlier on that were substantial, that are now going to be based on journalism expenditure exclusively. I think there's potential that in some cases there will be less money for them and potentially Meta traffic, of course. I think the other scenario is if you look at small independent publishers, which I'm thrilled for this because they are generally be included, as Paul mentioned, and I think that's the best thing, that would be the best outcome of all of this. But I think if, in some cases, if you went to a small publisher that had maybe one or two journalists and said, okay, we'll give you $20,000 or $40,000 a year, but by the way, you don't have Meta anymore, they're gone.
not sure that that's always a welcome outcome, because I think, as we launch new publications, meta was a really important tactic in bringing new publications to light. And with that gone, I think that's the area of the I'm concerned about is how do you start these things and get them to sustainability in a reasonable amount of time, even if you have a bit more money to do so.
Look, like you, I have no line of sight into the financial books necessarily of like the big media companies on the print side of the equation. But I've seen some assessments that the Globe and Mail, National Post, media, they could be worse off with these changes. I don't know. I think it's possible that with the way this has worked out with Google, but with the loss of the meta deal, big city papers could actually take a hit here.
Yeah, I mean, use Torchstar as an example, who had deals with both Meta and Google, so the Meta deal's lost, like our Meta deal is lost. But because of recent issues, they've had layoffs in terms of the number of journalists. So now all of a sudden, your Meta deal is gone. Your fund is now based on the number of journalists you have. It's possible that the combination of those two things might put them in a worse position. I don't know the nature of their deals. I don't know Postmedia's or Globe and Mail's. I don't.
Chi-Town. I just wanted to go there. Apparently it's fucking terrible.
For them, this might put them ahead.
Oh, where is it?
Every scenario is a
Okay,
little bit different here.
I heard Paul Dagan praise Pascal St. Onge for this. This is the final point. Do you think?
Fuck, what's it called? Where they have Margaritaville.
Given where things were on this issue under the previous minister.
Wait.
We have been through. This is Pascal's the fourth minister on this file, and she is the first one that ever.
New Orleans. That's where I am. Pitbulls and Pro League. I'm gonna fucking volunteer there.
Practical, reasonable, efficient. I'm impressed with the way she's handled this now.
No one has met with you, given all the small and medium-sized cities and towns in Ontario that you work in. No one from the government had met with you.
Well, it's not even just us as Village Media. It was a whole group of us that we called the Local News Collective that was made up of hundreds of publications across Canada, and we could never get the attention of prior ministers. And Minister St. Onge was very good and very, very generous to meet with us.
All the talking points.
This is No Goose Firefly Glass. And in case you've been living under a rock, here's everything you need to know about this insanely.
The carnage unfolding in Israel-Hamas war took a shocking twist in Gaza today, where the Israeli Defense Forces says it mistakenly shot and killed 3 of its own citizens held hostage. Their military forces say soldiers made the error of thinking the victims were a threat. Jason joined us live.
That's free, but we know that.
Yeah, good evening, Adam. Tonight, officials in Israel say it's unclear if the 3 hostages had escaped captivity or not, and the killings happened where much of the fighting is going on in northern Gaza. If you take a look right here, these are the reported images of the 3 hostages, and they're being identified by the IDF as Yotam Shamir al-Talaka and Alon Shamriz. Israel says they're conducting a review of the killings. This follows Israel maintaining its stance on eliminating Hamas, which could take months to do so, according to its military. This is as they face international outrage and rare criticism from the U.S.
That's three that you know about. How many do we not know about?
For their concerns of the killing of civilians in Gaza. Here's the IDF explaining today's incident regarding the hostages.
And what we have told our troops is to exercise when being confronted with people in civilian clothes. And again, part of the complexity here is that we're fighting in a civilian environment where almost all of the RPG crews and the crews that have been attacking our tanks and our troops have been dressed in civilian clothes. So it creates a very dynamic and combat environment. And what we have told our troops is to be extra vigilant
And yesterday, U.S. President Joe Biden made his opinion about wanting to see Israel scale back its ground operation in Gaza. And discussions are happening between Israel and the U.S. national security today. And also today, the Palestinian president is also meeting with U.S. officials to discuss post-war arrangements. Meanwhile, news outlet Al Jazeera is reporting that another journalist was killed in Gaza today. And according to a media rights organization, at least 68 media members have been killed since October 7th.
More. more than that.
On this Saturday night, an Ottawa teen facing terror charges. His father speaks to Global News. We never use violence for nothing, you know. The alleged plot, the target, and the possible motive. Sorrow and anger. The devastating details behind the mistaken killing of 3 Israeli hostages by the IDF. Fake art finds. BC's bogus Group of 7 exhibit. Canada's longest running radio documentary show celebrates a milestone.
The Ottawa history of new music is a throwback to the old days when you would turn on the radio.
Why what's old is attracting new audiences.
Okay, really? Stop flirting. Fucking useless.
Good evening and thank you for joining us. We begin with breaking news tonight. A Global News exclusive out of Ottawa, where a high school student has been arrested by the RCMP in relation to an alleged terrorism plot against the Jewish community. Let's get right to our reporter, Mercedes Stevenson in Ottawa. Mercedes, how did this all unfold?
Last night, the RCMP carried out a highly sensitive national security operation here in Ottawa, arresting a teenager on terror charges, a story that we broke earlier this afternoon. The investigation involved multiple police forces and CSIS, Canada's spy agency. The RCMP say the target was the Jewish community. The teenager is charged with facilitation of terrorist activity, communicating instructional material related to an explosive substance, and he's also charged with knowingly instructing, directly or indirectly, a person to carry out a terrorist attack against Jewish persons. Sources say RCMP tactical team was on hand for the arrest, as were officers from the chemical, biological, nuclear, and high explosives team.
What the fuck are you talking about?
Say about communicating instructions on an explosive substance for terrorist activity. 2 national security sources say the teen was ideologically motivated and that he was influenced by someone they believe who was involved with a group that has an ideology that is ISIS-like. The young man's father spoke with Global News outside the courthouse earlier today after his son appeared. He said the boy is in grade 10 and that he's been concerned about religious extremists.
How in the actual fuck does someone in grade 10 get fucking a hold of that shit?
Stay away from, extremists or something. We never had this in the family. We don't have, but it seems, I think he's minor, he's 15 years old. I think they try to use him, and they say some people, that's what I think, some extremists, they try to use him. He's kind of like, he never used violence, nothing,
Is that even the kid's actual father?
I'm surprised.
The boy's father told us that he and the mother of the teenager had tried to set up counseling with an imam at a local mosque, but it's unclear whether the teen followed through. National security sources have told me that they are deeply concerned about threats to the Jewish community in Canada from both neo-Nazi hate groups and groups like ISIS. There are active investigations unfolding across the country. Tonight, sources in the Jewish community say they are afraid but also relieved that police are acting. The Canadian Centre for Israel-Jewish Affairs told Global News the arrest and charges laid today against an individual are a staggering development of what unchecked anti-Semitism has become in our country.
And Mercedes, you've also heard from your national security sources that this is not a one-off case, and it isn't limited to one group specifically being targeted.
That's correct, and in fact, in a press release tonight, it matched what my sources had been telling me that the RCMP put out, saying that there have been 5 youth this year. That means people under the age of 18 charged with terrorism charges. That's a really serious charge. We're looking at a number of different groups. There's concern about neo-Nazis, like Adam Waffen Division targeting youth. There's concerns about ISIS targeting youth. But the commonality is this attempt to influence young people. And the RCMP are actually so concerned that they are launching a national campaign to educate parents.
Oh my God.
Radicalization. And we have 2 examples up on the screen there. You can see the kind of material that police have used in the past, and that I'm told they they are planning to use again. And we just have a couple of things quickly, Farah, that police are asking parents to watch for tonight, including if your child appears to be increasingly exclusive in their association with social groups promoting violence, expression of us versus them mentalities, the dehumanization of others, and extreme anti-government attitudes. They're saying if you see any of that, okay, we're seeing this in
Extreme anti-government issues. You mean like the government that fucking kills 3 civilians by accident? Whoopsies!
Now fallout after Friday's news that the Israeli military mistakenly killed 3 Hamas hostages.
Wow,
in
that's
Gaza.
perfect.
The tragedy
Good
is
follow-up.
the fears of family members whose loved ones were taken captive by Hamas on October 7th.
No.
Hello there, you awakening wonders. Thank you so much for joining me for Stay Free with Russell Brand today. We'll be streaming for the first 15 minutes with Norman Finkelstein. Then we'll be exclusively available on Rumble. And remember, if you press the red button on your screen, you can become an awakened wonder and join these conversations when they happen live. You can get Norman Finkelstein's new book, I'll Burn That Bridge When I Get to It, Heretical Thoughts on Identity, Politics, Cancel Culture, and Academic Freedom at normanfinkelstein.com. Over the course of this conversation, we talk a lot about obviously the conflagration in the Middle East. Norman Finkelstein has extremely well-researched views that some of you will no doubt vehemently oppose and others of you will be extremely interested to listen to. As I continue to tell you when it comes to this conflict, I hope that we are able to form some kind of cartilage where we may make connections that could lead to peaceful solutions for all of us, which seems like a pretty extreme ambition, and nevertheless, with the divinity within us all, no lesser ambition will do. We'll be available on YouTube for the first 15 minutes, and we can't make this content without the ongoing support of our commercial partners. We're going to take a brief moment to pause and offer you some insight from the people that support our content. Thank you for being part of this movement. Thank you for supporting our supporters. Have you ever wondered why you are not at the very center of the universe, commanding its every move? Well, get ready for Projector. The Galaxy Projector isn't just a light, it transforms your room into an enchanting planetarium, seamless, colourful projections and stars too abundant to count. Its colours, brightness, rotation, speed and timers are all in your control. Just a tap on your phone and voila, the dawn of time. Creation itself. With a user-friendly app, you can tweak everything to match your mood. It's customization at its best, and guess what? It's energy efficient too. Enjoy your personal galaxy without worrying about your electricity bill skyrocketing into the very cosmos you're creating in your own room. Go to www.galaxylabs.co/brand. Use my code BRAND and get 15% off. Feel first. Galaxy Projector, made among the stars. Go to galaxylabs.co/brand. Use my code BRAND and get 15% off your Galaxy Projector. So, let's get into the conversation. Norman, thank you very much for joining me for Stay Free with Russell Brand.
Thank you for having me.
First of all, Norman, I want to start by asking you a question that you requested. We began with the 2014 operation known as Protective Edge. Can you explain for us, our viewers that are live with us in the locals community right now, and for our Rumble stream viewers, what Operation Protective Edge was, how it's significant in the Israel-Hamas or Israel-Palestine conflict, depending on how you frame it, and why you've chosen that to be our sort of starting point for the conversation today?
In the current round of interviews that have been done on the current Israeli assault on Gaza, everything seems to start on October 7th, as if everything were fine and dandy until October 7th. And on October 7th, this gang of thugs, hooligans, and insane people burst the gates of Gaza and proceed to commit a high-scale massacre in Israel. But for those who have studied the conflict, what happened on October 7th wasn't
the beginning of the story. It was really the climax of a chapter in the story. And that's climax in the chapter of the story begins really in 2006 when Israel imposed a brutal economic blockade on Gaza. The effect of that blockade was that nothing could go into Gaza and nothing could come out of Gaza. No person could go into Gaza and no person could leave Gaza without Israel's permission. Israel imposed in the course of that blockade a regime of a starvation plus diet on the people of Gaza. It literally calculated the caloric intake of the people in Gaza and then allowed food to enter Gaza at a starvation plus level. Gaza has suffered from among the worst economic deprivation, but in particular unemployment in Gaza. Among Gaza in general, it's about 50% of the population. Among youth, namely the people who burst the gates of Gaza, the unemployment is at a level of about 70%. About 97% of the water in Gaza is poisonous. It can't be drunk by the people. Now, if you add up all of these factors, what do you get? And I've just skimmed the surface. I haven't mentioned that half the population of Gaza comprises children. I haven't mentioned that 70% of the population of Gaza comprises refugees who were expelled from Israel in 1948 and their descendants. I haven't mentioned that Gaza is among the most densely populated places on God's earth. I haven't mentioned that with the young people who burst the gates of Gaza, most of them were born into that place in which suffered from this economic blockade since 2006. So what do we get when we put all these factors together? Well, we take your own former British Prime Minister, David Cameron, who now I understand is your Foreign Secretary. David Cameron described Gaza as an open-air prison. If you take Israel's senior security establishment official, he was the head of Israel's National Security Council. His name is Giora Eiland. And in March 2004, Giora Eiland described Gaza as, quote, a huge concentration camp. And so what you saw on October 7th was young men who had been born into a concentration camp and had lived for 20 years of their lives in that concentration camp.
So
but that's only half the story. The other half of the story is Israel periodically Israel mows the lawn in Gaza.
And
what is mowing the lawn? Well, mowing the lawn is these high-tech massacres that Israel launches against Gaza.
And
a lot of people nowadays express the opinion that if Israel is conducting such massive death and destruction in Gaza, it's because of what happened on October 7th. Well, it is true that the quantitative magnitude of the death and destruction in Gaza is at a new level. I wouldn't argue with that. No sane person would argue with that. But it's not true that the methods that Israel is employing in Gaza are new, or that they suddenly emerged after October 7th. So I asked your colleagues to just print out, you have in front of you, a list taken from not a human rights report, not from the United Nations, but just random testimonies of Israeli soldiers who fought in Operation Protective Edge in 2014. Now, I want you to bear in mind that this list comprises not soldiers who are peaceniks, not soldiers who feel guilty or remorseful about their actions. On the contrary, these soldiers just randomly describe what they did in Gaza. I want to reiterate for your listeners, this is before October 7th. This is standard operating procedure for Israelis each time they mow the lawn in Gaza. So I'm going to ask you, Russell, because my profession, you're an actor, so you have a much better voice than me. Just for each testimony, I'm just going to ask you to go soldier, read one, soldier, read the next. Because I think it's important for listeners to understand what drove those young men to burst the gates of Gaza, and we have to be honest, committed atrocities.
We're going to stop that conversation here because, as you can see, we're moving into territory that is difficult to discuss on a platform that is subject to some censorship. Remember, I'm aware of how hotly contested and provocative this subject is, and I would like to use this forum as an opportunity for us to find the areas where we do agree. Is there a way that we can possibly find some territory, some realm, some new Jerusalem where Christians and Jews and indeed Muslims, of course, might come together in some sort of concordance? Certainly that's my deep prayer. Join us over on Rumble by clicking the link in the description. You Awakening Warriors, we love you. The link's there right now.
And I'd love to know what number fucking vacation Trudeau is on at this point. Like, why should he be allowed to go on Christmas vacation when there's people that are starving? And Pierre Poilievre was like, we should have to stay here until certain things get resolved, or at least plans for things to start getting resolved, like before we go on fucking holiday. Like, imagine you can celebrate your fucking Christmas in like a tropical island somewhere. Like, great. Kind of a fucking slap in the face to everybody else though. And oh yeah, and
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Roth, did the government tell you that the Biden laptop story was fake?
No, sir, they did not.
Did they tell you it was hacked?
No, sir, they did not.
On October 14, 2020, Twitter blocks the New York Post story on the Hunter Biden, the New York Post story on Hunter Biden and suspends their account. The night before, FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan sent you an email. The email says, "This heads up, I will be sending a teleporter link for you to download 2 documents. It's not spam. Please confirm receipt when you get it." 2 minutes later, 6:24 p.m., you respond back, received and downloaded, thanks. What were those 2 documents?
Twitter didn't give me access to my laptop, but Special Agent Chan has said publicly, and the FBI has confirmed that those documents did not relate to Hunter Biden, and that's my recollection of them.
What did they relate to?
My interactions with Agent Chan and with the FBI almost entirely focused on what the FBI called malign foreign interference, things like Russian troll farms and Iranian involvement in the elections, not on any type of domestic.
Did the information on there classified?
No, sir, I do not hold a security clearance, and so I would not have received any classified information.
Who does hold a security clearance? I just got a second email here. I'm just curious about this. What I propose is that 30 days out from the election, this is another email to you from Mr. Chan. 30 days, we get temporary clearances. You pick who they are. Who were the people at Twitter who had a security clearance?
To be honest, sir, I'm not sure, and we never ultimately followed through on this plan to get temporary clearances.
Did anyone at Twitter have a security clearance?
It's my understanding that at least some current or former employees did hold clearances, but I wasn't certain about that.
Ms. Gaddy, do you know if anyone took up Mr. Chan's offer to hand out security clearances 30 days before the 2020 election?
Not that I'm aware.
So we don't know how many people had security clearance. Twitter, do we know? Mr. Baker, Mr. Gaddy, Ms. Gaddy, anyone know how many people on Twitter had a security clearance in the 30 days prior to the election?
I don't know the answer to that question.
Ms. Gaddy?
I do not know.
Mr. Roth, you don't know?
No, sir.
Well, how about the last one? Ms. Navaroli, do you know?
No.
I mean, it seemed like the offer was to sort of just hand them out like candy. I just wondered who had them. No one knows? Okay. So the FBI didn't tell you that it was fake, didn't tell you that it was hacked. And Mr. Roth, did the story violate your policies?
In my judgment at the time, no, it did not.
Yeah, that's what you said. Said what I would propose, you said it isn't clearly a violation of our hack materials policy, nor is it clearly a violation of anything else. So I think what a lot of people are wondering is if it didn't violate your policies, and they didn't tell you it was fake, didn't tell you it was hacked, why'd you take it down?
The company made a decision that found that it did violate the policy. It wasn't my personal judgment at the time that it did, but the decision was communicated to me by my direct supervisor, and ultimately I didn't disagree with it enough to object.
You know what I think happened, Mr. Roth? I think you guys got played. I think you guys wanted to take it deep down. We saw what the chairman put up where you said, everyone in the White House is a fascist. I think you guys wanted it to be taken down. I think you meet with these guys every week. We know that's been established in the Twitter files. You had weekly meetings with Mr. Chan in the run-up to the election. They send you all kinds of emails. They send you documents on the super secret James Bond teleporter. You get information on that. I think you guys wanted to take it down. I think you guys got played by the FBI. And that's the scary part. Because we had 50, this to me is the real takeaway. 51 former intelligence officials 5 days after you guys take down the Hunter Biden story and block the New York Post account. 5 days later, 51 former intel officials send a letter and they say, the Hunter Biden story has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. The information operation was run on you guys. And then by extension, run on the American people. And that's the concern. And to Mr. Raskin's point that you guys aren't bound by the First Amendment because you're a private company, okay, maybe so. But your terms of service don't have to comply with the First Amendment. Would that be right, Mr. Roth? They don't have to. You said that as much in your testimony.
My understanding of the First Amendment is that it protects people and businesses from government, not
understand and your terms of service. So here's what I want to know. Is this a violation of the First Amendment when the government, Mr. Chan, again, sending you an email saying, we think these accounts need to be looked at because they violate your terms of service? That's a different standard. So you got the government saying your terms of service, which don't have to comply with the First Amendment, but the government saying we don't think these accounts comply with your terms of service, please take them down. You see a problem there, Mr. Roth?
Mr. Chairman, I'm seeing a flashing red light. I'm happy to answer the question. Do I think that that's a valuable use of the FBI's time? No, but I don't see a request for review of a problem under the First Amendment.
I sure do. I take the gentleman. You're back.
Chair recognizes Mr. Conley for 5 minutes. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Jordan.
I thank the gentleman. Mr. Roth, I'm going to go back to your statement in your declaration to the FEC. I learned that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. Who did you learn that from?
My recollection is it was mentioned by another technology company in one of our joint meetings, but I don't recall specifically whom.
You don't know the person's name?
I don't even recall what company they worked at. No, this was a long time ago.
And you're confident that it was from a tech company, not from someone from the government?
To the best of my recollection, yes.
Did anyone from the government in these periodic meetings you have, did they ever tell you that a hack and leak operation involving Hunter Biden was coming?
No,
Did Hunter Biden's name come up at all in these meetings?
Yes, his name was raised in those meetings, but not by the government, to the best of my recollection.
Okay. Mr. Baker, I want to go back to the question we had a few hours ago. But I want to frame it in a way I think you can answer. Did you ever tell the FBI that they had no legitimate interest in enforcement of Twitter's policies?
I don't think I understand. I think I understand the question. I don't recall ever having such a conversation with the FBI.
Okay, did you think there was a problem with the FBI sending you a list of names and accounts and saying, hey, these violate your policies? Did you see that as as some kind of potential concern?
I was always concerned that the FBI adhere to the Constitution and laws of the United States. Period.
And you didn't think that crossed the line?
What crossed the line, sir?
What I just asked you. That they're sending you a list of accounts that they want. They say these violate your terms of service.
Again, I'm making sure that I can answer the question. Had I thought that they were doing something unlawful, I would have taken appropriate steps to address it.
Okay, Mr. Roth, why were you reluctant, based on what I read in the Twitter post, why were you reluctant to work with the GEC?
It was my understanding that the GEC, or the Global Engagement Center of the State Department, had previously engaged in at least what some would consider offensive influence operations. Not that they were offensive as in bad, but offensive as in they targeted entities outside of the United States. And on that basis, I felt that it would be inappropriate for Twitter to engage with a part of the State Department that was engaged in active statecraft. We were dedicated to rooting out malign foreign interference, no matter who it came from. And if we found that the American government was engaged in malign foreign interference, we'd be addressing that as well.
Gentlemen, time's expired. In closing, I want to again thank our panelists for being here. I know it's been a long day. We apologize for the electricity going out. That's never happened in my 6 years in Congress. But before we close,
welcome everyone to the second hearing of the Select Committee on the Weaponization of the Federal Government. Chair now recommends himself for an opening statement. In the run-up to the 2020 presidential election, FBI Special Agent Elvis Chan, in his deposition in Missouri versus Biden, said that he repeatedly informed Twitter and other social media platforms of the likelihood of a hack and leak operation in the run-up to that presidential election. He did it even though there was no evidence. In fact, he said in his deposition that we hadn't seen anything, no intrusions, no hack. And he repeatedly told him something was coming. Yoel Roth, head of trust and safety at Twitter, testified that he had regular meetings with the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Department of Homeland Security, FBI, and other folks regarding election security. During these weekly meetings, federal law enforcement agencies communicated that they expected a hack and leak operation. The expectations of a hack and leak operation were discussed throughout 2020, and he was told they would occur in a period shortly before the 2020 presidential election, likely in October. And finally, he said, I also learned in these meetings that there were rumors that a hack and leak operation would involve Hunter Biden. So, what did the government tell him? A hack and leak operation was coming. How often did the government tell him this? Repeatedly for a year. When did the government say it was going to happen? October of 2020. And who did the government say it would involve? Hunter Biden. Now think about it. Government had no evidence of any intrusions, no evidence of a hack and leak, yet for a year they tell Twitter that a hack and leak is coming, it's coming in October, and it will involve Hunter Biden. No evidence, but the FBI knows what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, and who it's going to involve. Now that's amazing. That is amazing to me. Maybe they get the time right. We're kind of used to October surprises every 4 years. So maybe they get the time right. But they got the time, they got the method, and they got the person. That's amazing. It's almost like these guys were clairvoyant. How did they know? How did they know? Maybe it's because they had the laptop, and they had it for a year. They had the laptop, they knew it wasn't hacked, but that's not what they told Twitter. They didn't tell Twitter that information, and Twitter believed, frankly, everything they said. In those weekly meetings, the FBI had built a cozy relationship with this tech company and others as well, we believe. Emails between the FBI and Twitter began with the greeting, hey, Twitter folks. Emails that asked Twitter to take down accounts and limit visibility of tweets. FBI handed out security clearance to folks at Twitter. They communicated with Twitter on this secret teleporter app where messages disappear after a certain length of time. And of course, they paid Twitter $3.4 million. In addition, on August 6, 2020, the FBI briefed Senators Grassley and Johnson, and according to the senator's testimony last month in front of this committee, the briefing was bogus and done so someone could go leak that the briefing had happened and undermine the senator's investigation. In September of 2020, a government-funded think tank gets involved. They do a tabletop exercise. The participants include the New York Times, the Washington Post, and other mainstream media outlets. Facebook, Mr. Roth of Twitter is there. Mr. was the former CEO of NPR and the former head of news at Twitter. The exercise is hosted by the Aspen Institute. The Aspen Institute, which by the way, in 2020, their budget was $9.3 million. $5 million from the State Department, $4 million from USAID. Almost all their budget. Guess the title. Guess the title of this exercise. The Aspen Digital Hack and Dump Working Group. And guess who the subject was? Guess who the subject was? Hunter Biden. That's amazing. October 14, 2020, the New York Post runs the story on the Biden laptop and Twitter takes it down, even though it was accurate and even though it didn't violate Twitter's rules. Other social media companies do the same. Mainstream press works to downplay and discredit the story. Finally, as if on cue, 5 days later on October 19th, 51 former intel officials signed a letter with the now famous sentence, the Biden laptop story has all the classic earmarks of a Russian information operation. Something that was absolutely false. Our government building a cozy relationship with big tech. They primed them for a hack and leak operation.